Hello everyone, welcome back to SabbChat.
This week and the next week coming is revision aid, and with the exam season upon us, we wanted to do something to just have to listen to if you want to just kind of step away from revision, and hopefully this will be somewhat useful or entertaining, where we kind of just talk about how we revise, or what it's been like for us. I feel like we all have like very different experiences, because for me, I'm second year going into third year biomed, and yeah, does everyone kind of want to say their situation, or maybe like what you're studying, so that people can relate?
So I'm doing physiotherapy, so I'm up at the Heath, of course. I was in second year as well before I took this role out, so I have a mixture of practical as well as written exams. So and obviously a lot of my assessments are on placement as well. But yeah, practical exams. We'll talk about those a bit later.
That's a diverse range of assessment, isn't it? Because like for me, it's like practicals don't really get assessed as much, and then there's like heavy exam and assessment pieces, but like having to do clinical as well on top of things like that. What about you, Jane? What sort of like things?
Well, I'm doing postgraduate studies, master's, so it's a little different. And well, the way it runs, it's kind of diverse in the sense that you kind of have like the models working for you, and usually they set the models in such a way that it gets your materials and all of that. So it's more of independent study really. And then if you can have study groups, that's as much fine. I made use of study groups. I made use of the combination of both. So it kind of worked for me that way. And then we had like, so there's always a summative assessment and then formative assessment. So it's pretty much, and then the exam part. So it's a continuous process. So the assessment kind of, it's more of, the assessment leads towards discussion groups. Like you kind of have like every class comes with like discussion groups. So it prepares you for what you kind of expect for exams, like the kind of questions that you might be asked during exam. So they have all those discussion groups, and then they have tests after exam, like not like really serious tests and all of that, but it's more like just to understand if you had a full grasp of what is going on in class all through. And then there's like all these subtext after your lectures that maybe if you're like a virtual learner, you make use of more videos and all of that, you adapt towards learning like that. You have some text from YouTube and like relevant information from YouTube and all of that. But if you're more of like a digital reader and all of that, there's also subtext for you to like look up in the library and all of it. So it's like extra books for you to have like extra reading. So
sounds like
too much that.
Yeah, it sounds.
I was going to say that probably that group aspect is probably going to be an interesting topic with all everything changed this year. I mean, how I've heard different stories from how people have kind of adapted and overcome to find revision sessions and groups, because it's a bit different revising on your own, isn't it? But right, so I suppose I'm very different from all of you in the fact that I didn't have any practicals, or my courses are not based around practical. I was in arts and humanities, so history and language, French, and although we were meant to have a presentation, we had to end up doing it online. So we didn't have any kind of, I suppose, with bioscience, you go into the lab, I imagine, and serve yourself with placement. Jane, I missed your course, but not. I think.
No, public health. We did more of field trips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's quite
that's
physical.
cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, is how diverse our courses are, and like when today we were kind of going to talk about revision tips and how actually we all have such different elements of like what our course involves. Like you don't really think about there being some practical, some clinical, some not, some presentation based, some discussion based. Yeah, I don't know, what tips would you have if you could like give, I don't know if one tip's even enough to be honest, but like something, and whether it be your top tip or the first thing that comes to mind, what would you say to someone revising now during exams? Do you guys have a tip or something that comes to mind?
For me, it's what kept me going, I think, and I think that's the main thing that it is about what keeps you going through revision. I think for me, it was doing it with a friend, and I think during my exams, obviously in first and second year, I could see people and go and do things like that. But when the lockdown came in and we were looking at preparing for assessments and doing online work, one of my good buddies from my course, we used to Zoom when Cardiff gave us the unlimited Zoom, we used to Zoom every day at 9 o'clock, crack on with our work, sometimes just be in silence, but just be there to bounce things off each other or whatever it might be, and then crack on. And I think just a bit of company can keep you going. Some people, it completely distracts them, and I'm not going to say that I've never been distracted for days, but I think just doing it with someone, for me, is what really keeps me going, especially when it comes to written or non-practical assessments. Practical assessments, it's nice to do with people, but yeah.
The only thing was that though, do you get distracted? I'm not sure about the others, but when I find that you get kind of half your work when you have with other people kind of working with you.
Say that again. I might be distracted.
When you're working with friends or a group, I find that it's very easy to fall into talking, you know? So you kind of set up a revision session, and then before you know it, you're talking about something else, you're doing something else, you know? You've got to choose
who it is wisely. So my mate was Joe, and he's really quite by the book. So he would have the stone to sort of go, Seb, let's get on. Come on now. You're talking about.
I like that because for me, I really like people studying around me. So like going to the library or going somewhere with friends was really like driven, like it helped me just focus. And one thing that I'm, every day during revision aid will be like a study session, where a live study session, like Zoom call through the Facebook study group, which we're setting up, where you can like go, log on, be like silent, have your camera on or off, but it's like a library where you can like study online with people there and like have a breakout room to go out to, because I do think there's something about being around people who are studying that just makes you think like, okay.
To be honest, I do understand what Vicky's talking about, the distraction. Really, I do more of, when it comes to group, I do more of studying on my own. And I think where I get more of what I need from a group study is when you already have a grasp of the material. So it's more of you all are meeting together to kind of discuss and kind of better understand what you all have already read. So it's more like a discussion section. So I get more information, I get more knowledge from that than if I don't know anything about the material, I'm still learning it or reading it, and we just have that study section going on. I get distracted as well. So
I think that's a good thing, actually. Like learning something and then going ahead and like almost like furthering your knowledge, isn't it? Like consolidating it.
Yeah.
Do you know, I think, sorry, go on, Jane.
Yeah, I was about to give my own tips. I would go with two, honestly. The first, I kind of realized that mind mapping really, really helps a lot. Like when you are studying and you are making like a very short description of what you are learning, it kind of really helps. And it kind of helps to like when you can have it as a material, you can always revisit it back. Like when you study, you have like that space of time and you come back to it, there's always that better understanding with it. And then the mind mapping thing is, you can even use it as flashcard. It can work like a flashcard for you. You go back there, you are trying to, you remember that, and sometimes when after learning a thing, and I want to know if, and maybe, let's just say I went to the park and I'm relaxed and I just realized, okay, can I actually text my knowledge of this? If I have a pen and a paper and I tried reproducing what I've already learned, it kind of gives me an understanding of the gap of knowledge that still remains of that study material for me to go back to. And then sometimes it also works if let's just say this retention memory kind of thing, when you teach someone what you've already learned, like it kind of gives you also, like when you're teaching people, it's more like you are learning on your own by teaching people, and it's also informing you on the gap of knowledge that, oh, there is still something to learn because, oh, suddenly you don't know what osmosis is, and you don't know the difference between osmosis and diffusion. So, oh, you have to go back and learn it and all of that. So just by teaching other people too, kind of, but it's very tricky these days. So it's somewhat like, if you have like a flash share, I think that can work. And maybe your mates are the same people sharing the flash with you, but if they're not, I don't know. But then I think the tip around being able to teach someone what you have already learned to understand it more is use someone, a friend. There's always that friend of yours that want to learn what you're studying, even though they have no knowledge about it, just for you to be able to teach them that. So they're always willing to like listen to you talk about what you're studying, just for the sake of it. So that can be really helpful.
I like that. Like, go ahead, Seb. I can see you.
Yeah. So I completely agree with the teaching thing, and I think one thing one thing that I found quite valuable is when you're on clinical placement, that's essentially what you're doing the whole time. So before you go on clinical placement, you're revising what area it might be, where it's MSK outpatients or respiratory intensive care, whatever it might be. And you're revising before you go out. And you've learned all the in-depth knowledge and you know all of it, or you think you know all of it. And then you're presented and you're given a patient and you turn to them and they ask you what's actually wrong with them and what they can do to get better. And you have to basically teach them what you've been revising and teach them about themselves and what they can do to help themselves. And then you're demonstrating to your educator what you've learned essentially. And it's actually a very effective way of learning. So even when you're on placement, it's not just a case of treating, you do learn quite effectively because you're having to teach what you think you know. And it always highlights the weaknesses always.
You know, I think
Such a good point.
It's probably because that you're being tested in a way where it's not an examination. You know, you're not being said, tell me this in a sophisticated or exam way, but you're being asked it to put it in simple terms in order to teach someone else. Mm. And by doing that, you're kind of going to the basic understanding of what you've learned in a way that's comfortable and relaxed. So you're telling someone else and you're trying to make it easy for them. And you're not worrying about, is this right? You're just making it sure that it makes sense to them.
Yeah, I completely.
Yeah.
It definitely
And also,
go ahead.
And also, I find it very useful when people kind of, you already know your strengths, you identify your strength when it comes to learning. So you are using it even like I don't understand, like when it comes to paperback and digital copies, there are people that can't make use of digital copies to learn, but they make use of paperback. So it's just like having that understanding of where your strength is when it comes to study. Are you a virtuous person that when you're reading notes, you understand it more than when you're using YouTube? But when you're using YouTube or maybe like a learning material where you can virtually see people talking about it, how do you understand it more? Do you understand it from that perspective? Or do you, even when you're reading from your slides, there are people that understand it by when they're reading, they're writing it out. Like people, they write it out and they memorize it. They understand it more with writing it out. I just say, go with your study style, more of your learning style, go with it. Like there's always strength in that. And just like you understand if you are a listener, like more of a virtual listener, more of like auditory, and more of like, or you like to read and write. So just go with it.
Everyone's very different, aren't they? Because for me, like when we're talking about teaching, one thing I used to do would be like record myself, like teaching myself. So after I'd done something, I would like then listen over it. And like when I did like GCSEs and A-levels at that time, I had like a paper round in the morning and I'd listen to myself like teaching it and do that in the morning. But I think my top tip would be something like every day writing a to-do list, or like the night being like, what am I doing the next day? How am I going to approach it? Because I think it can be very daunting when you like start in the morning and you're like, what do I need to do? Where do I go? And sometimes that can be a big hurdle. It's almost like, I know I've got so much to do, but even like a weekly plan of like, okay, it's okay, I've got this covered. And then you've got that sort of, can jump straight in. You don't feel like you've not achieved anything either, because you can go back in your day and see everything you've done.
I think that's what you said there. It really resonates, because I think firstly, I mean, with the paper round, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of fun, but revision, if you think about it, is all about maximizing your time and making sure you can get the most out of the time that you're putting into your work. And if you're doing something which is like a paper round, when I used to go to the gym in my second year, because it was a half an hour walk to the gym, I'd put a podcast on that was related to my topic. And rather than walking just in silence and looking through the park, I'd be learning whilst walking. And even sometimes you switch off, you're still learning and making the most of your time that you otherwise you'd be doing nothing with, you know. And I think, you know, it's all about looking at, you know, sometimes you can think, oh my God, this module has got so much to it. There's so many modules I've got to work through, section. It's helpful, like you said, to break it up and think, right, by tomorrow I need to be at the end of this module, section something or so of this module, and you know, and you work your way through it. And if you fall behind, you fall behind. But you know where you need to be, and you've got like a kind of a bar to set yourself to, so you know where you're on track.
I like that. And also set your bar low.
Sometimes,
because I've learned this mistake plenty of times where I will be like, I am going to finish this module by the end of the week. And you get to the end of the week and you maybe have done like, what, 20%? And you just feel like pure rubbish. You're like, why did I do that to myself? I feel more demotivated. It's not going to happen. Be realistic. You know, set yourself like, this is what I'll do today, and if I have time, this is what I'll do. And if you reach the if you have time section, feel great about it. Like, don't put yourself down, have little wins. Even now to this day on my to-do list, it'll be like simple things. I'll have the big stuff, but I'll also have things I can just check off, like, you know, make sure everything's like been answered or something like that. Like, do things that are achievable and also just motivate you.
So yeah, I'm an absolute killer of leaving it until way too late. But in more recent years, as I've matured, I've start earlier, and I make every day easier than it needs to be, so that I can do more if I feel like it. And I think, as you say, bite size. Only you know how difficult you find different topics or different things. So there's some days where I'll only do one topic because I know I absolutely suck at it, and it takes me forever to get my head around it, even when I learned it the first time. But then there's some topics where I think, I know that. And you just put three topics in, bang, bang, bang. You can do them all in a day and potentially leave more. But it's about making them so bite-sized and so achievable. Because also, there's nothing like on a to-do list when you've crossed out like 4 things at once, and you're like, easy days.
There is
exactly. There is this understanding of, I always say big dreams, small goals. So it's almost like just having like, you understand that, okay, you want to like have the best of your degree, have a distinction, maybe, but like you want to have, and then it's like really, really small. So like after like, it's just like a normal process, but I know that some people kind of leave the reading towards exam time. So I have that understanding. I'm of both. I'm a student, I'm kind of both. So sometimes there are readings I leave towards exam times, and there are readings I can carry on. Especially, it all depends on my affiliation with the course. If I love the course so much, but if it's a difficult course, there's always that chance of you kind of keep reading to that point. But then there's something that I understand. There is one thing that every student kind of have, like there's all this you feel nervous during exam time, like especially when like people feel nervous during exam. I kind of understand that when it comes to that. Over the year, I feel less nervous during exam, and it's only because I try not to read on that day of the exam. Like I set my readings before the exam time, so by a day before that exam, there's a chance that I'm already rounding up, or there's a chance that I'm done with it, and I'm using my revision book. So it kind of eases off that nervous system where you're already thinking, because if you're trying to read up different materials at the same time, and you have like an hour to go before your exam time, there's always that panic that goes with it. Yeah, built up, and you can't even understand it, and over time you can see something that you can vouch that you read, but you just can't remember because you're nervous, you're under pressure, and which you're not supposed to be. If it's because of how, I don't know, but for me, I noticed that it's because of reading on that same exam day. It's not.
Have you not had that feeling though, when I agree with you, and if it's in the morning, I never look over notes just because it's, I don't know about you guys, but I don't get stressed until I get outside of the exam hall, and then I just need to calm down, just not do any work, just chill before I get into there, and then when I sit down, I do start. But in the afternoon, I like, if I'm, it got to the morning, I'll look for a couple of notes. But have you had that feeling when you're looking through your notes, I'll have a look at a couple of things, and they're the things that, damn, I think, thank God I looked at that before I went in.
So I don't know about you, but when I go over certain things, because I am guilty, I do look over things on the day, and it makes me feel worse because I'll flick through and I'll be like, I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know that. But you're also right, because things come up that you see and you're like, I'm glad I looked at that, because that one thing, and especially for first year for me, there was like facts and like percentages. Like you had to know the exact percentage of like climate change or something random. And I'd be like, if I didn't look, I wouldn't have known that. Like it's not application.
Yeah. I was going to make a rubbish joke. Sorry, I know you've just seen me unmute. I was going to make a rubbish joke, but I won't make it.
Oh, okay. The one thing. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say something quickly to one thing Seb said earlier, which was, I've made that absolute rookie error of when it's a really hard subject or module which you struggle at more, put loads of time into that, and then having a module where you think I've aced that, I'm fine, good. Obviously, you do really well at the thing you put loads of time into, but you struggle with it. And the worst module I've done is the module that I thought, right, that's great, I know it all. Yeah. Didn't put a lot of time into it, and that's the one that came down.
I can't tell you how many apps I have on my phone that are revision related from like first year and second year. I downloaded the forest app, growing trees, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to grow a bunch of trees and, focus, not go on my phone. but also have this app where you could like put in your modules and like how confident you are of each one, and it would like spread out your time. So you would say like, okay, I have like this many days until my exams, and I do these modules, and this is how confident I am, and it'd spread out the time in which you could like spend on each one. But do any of you do anything like that? Like have any apps? I can't say I use them all.
There is one app I made it up last year, and I won't call it a cheesy app. It's you can kind of you're able to make change while you're reading. So the app, you switch it on, and it times you, like everything on your phone kind of switches off, like from your phone. So just it kind of times you. If you pick up your phone and make use of it, it knows. So I don't know how, but it kind of when you drop your phone and you're reading without accessing your phone, a tree, like it keeps on, like you can see a tree growing, like graphically. And once the tree grows, it's more like as many trees as you're able to plant while reading and while studying.
That's it. The forest one I use.
Yeah, the forest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a very passive way to grow change, really. So I love that app, and I make use of it. So when I'm reading, it kind of also helps you not to touch your phone. So you just I feel like you feel like you're creating change, and you're helping people plant trees somewhere, and you're purifying the air. So it's like a very nice thing to use. So I use that app, and then pretty much. And then I make use of Trello. I think it just works for your timing, your to-do list. And I use Evernote. I use Evernote for everything, almost everything. Evernote. So it's really Evernote for me.
Oh, I like that. I know that we haven't got much longer because we're trying to keep it short and snappy because it is exam time and we don't want to kind of give you so much to watch. I feel like what should we finish on? Because I was gonna, what do you think?
Should we do? Jane mentioned a bit of kind of apps on the phone. Should we talk about procrastination quickly?
Yes. Come on, we got 5 minutes. Quick.
Big killer to exam revision.
What distracts you guys? What actually makes you procrastinate in the first place?
I think the classic is doing things you don't normally do. So tidying, like I had a bit of work to do yesterday evening, and I vacuumed the whole house, just like vacuumed the floor. Had a haircut. What else did I do? Yeah, I had to send 2 emails, and I thought I'm just going to start vacuuming. I saw the vacuum cleaner from the corner of my eye. I was like, right, that's it. That's today's task. So I think what I try and do is make sure it's guilt-free. So always try and have a bit of guilt-free procrastination, because everyone procrastinates. It's just a fact of the matter. You'll do it, and it's totally fine. I think as long as you set yourself a limit and say, right, these are my procrastination tasks. This is what I'm going to do, which is what I usually do. So I'm going to vac everything, and then I'm going to clean the oven. Then I'm going to go do a food shop, and then I'm going to crack on. But as long as it's guilt-free, I think that's the main thing in revision during revision. Is just like, make sure that you're not guilting yourself into anything. You're not putting yourself down for not having worked hard enough, or whatever it might be, or being behind schedule. Just give yourself that time, whether it's a break or whether it's heavy procrastination. Just don't guilt yourself, and don't guilt yourself over it. It's fine.
I love that.
It's that thing though, isn't it? When you say, right, I'm going to start at 10. I'm going to wake up at 9, start at 10, then I'll get this done, have lunch at 12 to 1, and then so 9 till 12, you'll end up doing, I don't know, something like vacuuming and watching Netflix. You'll get to lunch, right, I'll have lunch now because it's lunch, and then I'll start. Then you procrastinate, and then you get to the evening, you think, oh, it's too late to start revision now, so I'll start again tomorrow. Yeah,
that is it, isn't it? It's a pushback. It's like, oh yeah, food. Oh, I haven't eaten since 11 and it's 12, or like that sort of vibe. But I think the tip of not being guilty about it is so key, because for me, I am so much more productive in the morning. So like if I get up early and I revise for like a couple of hours, I feel like I've done something, which makes me feel even better and more likely to do something later. But like it is if you're going to be procrastinating, let yourself. And like sometimes just say you take that day off and don't feel guilty about it. I love that tip. So.
Yeah, I love the guilty. I love the tip about the guilty part. Don't guilt yourself into it. Really, I'm more productive at night. So usually, it's more like if I leave things at night and I say like, okay, during the day I'm going to do it. There's a likely chance I will do it during the day, and I'll wait for the night. So it's more like for me when it comes to procrastination, I already know I'm human. Everyone does it. Everyone does it. So and sometimes it's more like something comes up and kind of takes importance of of that, and then you say, okay, later I'll do it, and then you're doing another thing. So usually I just compartmentalize, like I just prioritize it. So if I know that, okay, this is what I'm doing, and there's a tip that a friend of mine gave me, how she does it. She doesn't procrastinate. She does, I don't know how, but I would say she may have, like she does somehow, but for the most part, she gets things like done quickly, because as they are coming, she doesn't want to like give it off time, like, oh, I'll do this later. She doesn't use that. She does it like she wants to do it that time. So if she's getting like an email, she's already trying to respond to it. She's getting a message to it. So she does that. I don't know how she does it, but she does that. But I feel like there's always something you procrastinate in your life anyhow. So even if it's not like doing things, it's more like maybe there is a text message from your dad or your mom that you have not responded to, but you're getting work done. So there's always something that you eventually end up procrastinating with. So it's
true. There's always things going on, and I think like a time like this as well, it's like so much to think about. How do you focus? And yeah, I know that we've coming to the end, but like to finish up, almost like something good, like last words. We have 2 minutes to kind of like round in. I don't know.
Can I just say quickly, there was one thing I think was vital with this, Jane mentioned it, which was, someone else was doing this. And I think for me, I always stuck by the line, comparison is the thief of joy, because you can so often compare your classmates, and I've done this module, or I'm doing this revision. You see on social media, people saying, look at the plans I've done. And you think, oh, I'm not going to do well because I haven't done this, or you're comparing yourself to your peers and people around you. But it's so important to focus on what works for you, what you need to do. You mark your own progress. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we fall behind on different things. But focus on what you need to do. Make sure you're doing what's best for you. Don't focus on social media. If you can, switch off from social media and vision, because it's just distraction. And just focus on what you need to get done. And
I love that. I feel like
exactly. Set your own standards, set your own goals, and smash it.
Thank you for watching, and I hope this has been useful and something to kind of draw away from your revision, but also help you out, hopefully.
Next week we'll be talking about the well-being side of Revision 8 and revision. So I think it's Georgie joining us next week, Hannah, isn't it?
Yeah, and hopefully a special guest as well. So yeah, we shall see you then. Stay tuned, and we shall share with you some tips then. But thank you for watching, and good luck with exams.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye.